injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
Welcome to Fish on First Live. Every single series that the Marlins play, we have a preview show just like this, presented by Berger and Hicks, as always. On this one, not talking a whole lot about the series itself. It's only a two-gamer anyway between the Marlins and Rays, but the news of the day, in fact, I actually meant to make our faces big to begin with. I gave it away already, but the news about Avi Garcia, I'm sure, dominate the competition. Eli, Isaac, Nate Carsberg, and special guest, super sub, as well as Marlins After Dark host, Sean Miller, joins us. How are you feeling, Sean?
Oh, I'm feeling great. It's a day of deliverance, as you alluded to. A weight has been lifted off my shoulders, almost as if a 20 million plus albatross is at least no longer something I have to look at, even though it's still there.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Immediately, Avi Garcia designated for assignment this morning by the Marlins. If you follow our stuff at Fish on First, especially our State of the Fish spaces on Sunday nights, you got an early heads up that this was likely coming. Thank you to Craig Mish, as always, for his insight, for kind of going out of his way to drop a hint that Avi's return from his rehab assignment was far from a certainty. So after a week in AAA rehab games and struggling in doing so, the Marlins just bite the bullet rather than reinstating him. Technically, they did reinstate him from the IL and now have him. I want to start with Isaac on this as we're going to go through all angles of it, but about the timing in particular. Why do you think now, about 2.5 years into the deal, why not? This is something that Marlins fans have been clamoring for more than a year. At the same time, he still had more than a year remaining on his deal. And this is historically something we don't see the Marlins do, cutting off a big contract before it has really played out. So why do you think they landed on this particular timing to move on from Avi?
Well, obviously we have a new regime with the Marlins front office people. I think Peter Bendix came into this season, from what I understood, and basically said, all right, we're going to give him one more chance. And unfortunately, he got off to a pretty rough start in the regular season. Then once he started getting going a little bit, he got hurt again. He was on the IL more than he wasn't in his Marlins tenure. So I think they finally decided, hey, it's time. And you got to give Bruce Sherman credit. I think is remaining to make $7.5 million this year, the full $12 million next year, and the $5 million buyout. So in total, they are eating about $24.5 million by cutting Mr. Avisail Garcia. And obviously they could have kept him on the major league roster and taking a spot away from someone like Dane Myers and that would take away playing time from guys like Sanchez and De La Cruz. But I think they made the right call. The season is that. I do agree with you, Eli. It's a little bit peculiar that it happened now, but I think they also saw, like you and I talked about privately, they saw the quality of play in his rehab assignment. And I think he went 2 for 19. He wasn't moving around very well out there in right field. I think they just decided that there's really nothing left to salvage here. So no one likes to struggle. No one, even though you're making a lot of money, you have to feel for the player. He didn't want to come in here and completely shit the bed the way he did. No player wants to suck at their job. But unfortunately, Avi Garcia did just that. He wasn't trying to suck. It just unfortunately didn't work out. But, you wish him, like Peter Bendick said, you wish him nothing but the best. And it's a shame that one of the the biggest free agent signing by this ownership group ended up being like this.
Yeah, this is from Sunday, which turned out to be his final game in the organization, jogging after a ball in the corner, turning what probably should have been a double into a triple right here. So even after a full week of rehab games and playing the field, just not moving around well. Only had 2 hits in that small sample. He had struck out even 7 times. Like he had a 30-something% strikeout rate that week against AAA pitching. So this is a guy that even last year during his rehab assignments, he looked like a man among boys. And now, this was discouraging. I wanted to get into with Nate more about why it is that Avi was struggled so much. What was he bad at? Why did he all of a sudden, what's the difference between the player that they thought they were signing a few years ago and who he turned out to be the last few years?
I'd say biggest thing is consistency. As I mentioned, he had stretches. He even had one this year. He kind of started to figure out a little bit, but he never really could put it together over a course of a couple weeks or even a month as a Marlin. It's crazy. And even he's like everyone has seasons where they struggle. He's had seasons in the past where he struggled, but every season in Miami, 3 worse by OPS his entire career. And I mentioned years he has struggled. 2018, he struggled with the White Sox, went to the Rays the next year, hit 282, and struggled in 2020 in the shortened season. Next season with the Milwaukee before the Marlins signed him, he OPS 820. So it's just he never could put it together. People thought it could have been his weight entering 2022. Then next year in 2023 went to spring training a little bit slimmer, but didn't translate to the field whatsoever. It's just very disappointing. Someone you spend that much money on, and someone who's been consistent his entire career, all of a sudden did none of that in his time in Miami. So, like Isaac said, props to Bruce and Peter Bendich for ending it where they had to end it. It came to a merciful end, I'd say. But I'd say the biggest thing for him is just could not stay consistent or on the field whatsoever.
If you combine the 3 years, it's basically 1 full season's worth of playing time, 153 games, only 13 homers and 161 strikeouts, only 24 walks as well. Like you see it across the board, and put up there the comparison between his career slash line and his Marlins slash line.
Yeah. Just something just went wrong. And Eli, you were working on the Avi, how he's looking through 162 games as his time as a Marlin. Didn't even get to that point. It's wild.
That's right. Yes, I had that in my mind for a number of weeks now, thinking that he's inevitably going to come back. Inevitably, even if it's just as a platoon bat, that they'll use him. But I was also in my minds. I was talking with Isaac about this too, that it was just hard to justify bringing him back at this point where it's been such a long stretch of poor play that there's nothing he's going to do over the next couple months or even the rest of the season that is going to make another team intrigued by him. You're not going to salvage anything. It's a totally sunk cost because of how much he has struggled and because unfortunately now he's getting older and older. He just is about to turn 33 years old. Like other teams are not going to bet on that. You're not going to get anything in return. You're not going to get any significant salary relief in return for dropping him elsewhere. And at this point, if you're a team that has accepted that you're rebuilding, you have younger guys that are at least ready to be tested. Even they're not sexy prospects with super high ceilings. They're guys that are ready to get playing time, with Dane Myers being the most obvious example. He himself, 28 years old, and he had been filling the Avi role right now. If there's it's now or never for somebody like Dane Myers to establish himself as a big leaguer. It made no sense to potentially just not come back to AAA to play with a guy that has some of the same strengths, but some severe weaknesses that is not going to be part of your future. At least give yourself a chance to find somebody that could be part of your long-term future, or that somebody that could be built up into an actual trade asset, because the ship had sailed with that. With Sean, I don't want to step too much on your own pod that you're coming out with later this week about the worst Marlins contracts ever, but I know you already wrote about this a little bit on Call to the Pen about where this ranks, just to give people a look at what this contract is. It's a 4-year deal. It was $53 million. It was $12 million each year with a 5th-year club option at the end of it that is not going to be picked up. And that little line, I found it, I had forgotten about this, but when I looked at Cott's contracts, I remember that he donates $120,000, which sounds like a lot, but that's just 1% of his salary every year gets donated back to the Miami Marlins Foundation. So this is the deal, and it was sub-replacement level production that he's had so far. That being said, in the course of Marlins history, where does this fit in among the most unfortunate deals that they've ever signed in 3 decades of existence?
Well, until this season, I would have pushed very hard for Chen just keeping the top spot on lockdown, and it's really a 2-horse race between them. For which it gets to be, Chen, the 2016, 2017 team, if he was gone and any other useful pitcher was there, if that money had been spent a little differently, is this franchise in the same position now if those teams had winning records? And so maybe in that case, but this year with it's pretty clear that just Bruce Sherman's spirit was broken on the spending of free agents by the Avi contract. And we've kind of seen that play out in everything that's happened with this team since the end of the 2023 season. He broke the piggy bank for Avi, and then his spirit just got broken in the process. The fact that this other rebuild, is starting, certainly plenty of decisions by previous ownership group or previous team presidents, played into what led to this rebuild being necessary. But I think it's fair to question if, that money wasn't on the books, that Avisar Garcia money, is the 2023 team better? Do they stretch a little farther, into the playoffs? Would more have been spent this offseason? Would this team have been just a little bit better and avoid some of the roster decisions they've made already if that deal wasn't there? So when you weigh in the financial consequences of that $53 million, even though it's less than Chen's contract, I think Avi pulls in front on his way out the door as the worst deal.
Yeah, because I remember the Chen deal. He was coming off a great season with Baltimore. It was a lot of money. They overpaid like crazy. But for him to be right behind Jose and slot, okay, it was arguable. But Derek Jeter, he came in here with obviously zero experience and had no idea what the hell he was doing. And he goes and has dinner with Avi and his agent. And no one in the industry was even close to offering 4 years. 4 years for no, that wasn't even unbelievable that someone offered him this much. And not only that, a fifth-year option with a $5 million buyout. It was just almost preposterous that they offered him that. And obviously he took it. And then you just see all the other free agent signings that this team completed with Cueto and with Segura, giving Segura 2 years. Obviously that's not Jeter, that's Kim Ng. But still, obviously, in comes Peter Bendix and saying, hey, Sherman is saying, hey, look at all this money that we're spending on free agency. Not one of them contributed in a solid way. Not one. So, in comes Peter Bendix, and now they're cutting loose of some of the sunk costs, like you guys said, and we're going to see a lot of drafting, a lot of developing, and hopefully maybe some clever trades. But I'd be very surprised if you see them make another, let's say, 8-figure deal again in the next 3 years.
Yeah, and like Sean mentioned, also with the money, they could have used that money. It's been overblown a ton on Castellanos in that same free agency cycle, or split the money up between multiple guys, and those guys could have been key in 23 in the run last year. Maybe could have prevented the whole blow up happening again, but just the whole chain reaction. It just
terrible.
You really just hate to see it.
Just terrible. 4 years, 53 for unbelievable, man. Wow. Anyway, I'm glad it's behind us. Obviously, like I said earlier, no one wants to struggle, and you don't blame the player. Apparently, according to the Miami Herald article by Craig Mish, conditioning was a bit of an issue with him, not only with Miami, but in his previous stops with the White Sox as well as the Brewers. And in that case, you can sort of blame the player a little bit, but he lost a lot of weight following the 2022 season, and he still stunk. So I don't know how much emphasis.
You just watch the games. He wasn't bad because he was fat. He was bad because he swung at everything, and he swung and missed at everything. This is you can look at his history, and what made him kind of a freak in the past is that he had, even coming to the Marlins, he had a very high whiff rate, one of the highest in baseball, and he had one of the highest chase rates in baseball, and yet he could have success that way. But that's something that just does not age well deeper into your career. When you lose a little bit of athleticism, whether it's fitness related or not, just as you get deeper into your career, you need to make an adjustment with that approach. And if you don't do it, then you're either out of the league or you're on a disappointing contract like this. So his approach remained basically the same, and his results got a whole lot worse. As Kevin outlined, Kevin Barral, he wrote up the quick article on this. There just was no hot streak whatsoever at any point. There was no substantial flashes. There were individual plays. I guess his most celebrated play would be hitting that go-ahead game-winning home run in St. Louis in 2022. And Sandy comes back out for the 9th inning and throws a complete game on a million pitches. That was fun, and that was unlikely and improbable for him to do that in that moment. There were so far and few between to find actual good moments. He hit I think early last season he hit a decisive home run against Kenta Maeda and the Twins.
Oh,
And
that was like in the 4th inning.
that was even early in the game, but it proved to be significant. It's Ryan Schlesinger. He's not the only one asking this about whether he'll ever play in the big leagues again. I think it's all up to him because this money is fully guaranteed to him. That he doesn't need to play another inning of baseball in order to provide for his family. But if he still is competitive and wants to do it, he'll have to be willing to sit through, I would think, quite a bit of time in AAA to both prove himself and to wait for another opportunity to come up with another organization. I mean, if I had to guess, I think he comes up at some point again in the future, but I don't know him personally, and I don't know what his appetite is to continue to play further if it doesn't make any difference to him financially. That money is coming to him either way over these next couple of years. I don't know, but it's not unheard of for guys like this that had pretty interesting and productive careers overall to flash, to come up with I guess you call it a can't even remember the word for it, when something even post after their career, after everything is, all hope is lost, that they surprise people and have some sort of stretch of production again. Like, it's not unheard of that he could come back up and actually put up decent numbers in a very tiny sample with some other team in the future. But it's not going to happen with the Marlins. So we're just waiting for him to clear waivers officially, for the Marlins to release him, and then we'll see what he does from there at this point. We could talk endlessly about this. I think we know how Alex Carver feels about it.
He cannot play. He's absolutely cooked. Done. His career is over. Okay?
Okay.
Marlins stint is over for Garcia. Here, yeah. On this other first side of the break, I did want to get into a separate topic that probably followed up, of course, in this news because it came out around the same time. But some updated trade nuggets from Jeff Passan of ESPN. He is all over this type of stuff. I might as well read it for people that haven't already seen it. This preview that he did, touching on all 30 teams, what he's hearing about them so far. Who's the best player who will be dealt this deadline? It could be Jesus Luzardo. Stuff is club control through 2026. Teams will line up for him. At least one of them, one of the Marlins starters, is expected to be moved, whether it's Luzardo or one of their left-handers or right-hander Edward Cabrera. We call him a GM, Peter Bendix. New president of operations, Peter Bendix, aggressive, dealing really surprising first. Another big name who could move is center fielder Jazz Jr., though between his injury history and propensity to find himself in the middle of clubhouse drama. Interesting. The offers might not satisfy the Marlins' need for young talent. Gone for sure are left-hander Tanner Scott, who might be the best reliever available, and first baseman Josh Bell, both of whom reached free agency this offseason. Other names being bandied about include relievers Birch Smith, Andrew Nardi, Declan Cronin is a name that came up with Mish, and Mish was quite strong on the possibility that Cronin could be flipped, and perhaps outfielder Brian De La Cruz, whose interest level is more than anything a function of the awful class of outfielders. So anything from that, Sean, that sticks out from you that you find somewhat interesting or surprising?
I mean, I guess the optimist in me would like to think that for this exercise, they just picked all the good Marlins and, put them in an article. There's so much control left with so many of those names. I mean, I commented in the chat, I would hate to see Braxton Garrett go. I mean, he's got the track record, and he's so cheap. He's got the same amount of control left as Ryan Weathers. They're both free agents in 2029. So, I mean, they could theoretically make it through a short rebuild and still be cheap, effective, contributive pitchers on a team, and whether that's 2026, 2027, and still be helpful there. But so I'd really hate to see Garrett go. Weathers, it's really only been this season that he's turned it on, even though he looks great. Cronin, obviously that's very much a small sample this season. We talked about it a bit on the spaces, and they didn't get value for him. Great. But I'd say, so those are the names that would surprise me the most. Garrett and Weathers, if they traded them. I think that would be a bad move by them. Luzardo, they're in this corner where they probably have to do it, but only if they keep every other pitcher.
Right.
Starting pitcher.
Yeah, I would agree that with Luzardo, I think you're really risking it if you don't trade him. Obviously, with the injury history this guy has, I'm not really sure exactly how healthy he is now. So I agree with you, Sean. I think you sort of have to do that. And when it comes to Weathers and Braxton, they're totally different guys, kind of, because I think Weathers is the more like he's a bulk guy. I think he can go give you 6-7 innings and go 100 pitches plus. Braxton, I don't think they really trust him to go past the 5th inning or see a lineup a third time through the order. So, and they both have a lot of years of control. So to me, if you're trying to be remotely competitive next year, imagine you come back and you have Sandy and, well, Yuri won't be back for a while, but at least you have Sandy, you get Braxton, you have Weathers, you have Max Meyer, you have Edward Cabrera. I don't know what the deal is with Edward Cabrera. If someone's willing to overpay for him, do it, because honestly, there's some stuff that have been irking me about him lately. But regarding Braxton and Weathers, I think you would have to get an overpay to move any of those guys, because you can't just keep trading all your starting pitchers and expect to be good. And they're going to be in the same situation that you were in 2023 and in this year and next year. And you need these guys. Like, you always are going to need at least 10 starting pitchers throughout the year, at least. And they came into this year with like 4. So if it were me, I would keep those 2 left-handers. Like I said, they're totally different types of lefties, and they're both very good, in my opinion. They're high-quality starting pitchers. So I would keep those 2, trade Luzardo, listen on Cabrera, etc.
Yeah, I agree. I'd definitely keep Garrett and Weathers, and I don't know who would really want Trevor Rogers or Edward Cabrera. I mean, they've been, especially if you're a playoff team, if you want a guy that's more so reliable and someone that's proven that they can give you innings and shut guys down for the most part. Trevor Rogers hasn't done that all year. Edward Cabrera, I mean, like Isaac said, he's been all over the place, especially, I mean, like literally with his control, and then who knows where he's been recovery wise. But if the Marlins should flip a guy like Declan Cronin, maybe a little Nick Anderson 2.0, and get a Jesus Sanchez type of prospect, that'd be very intriguing. Even Bert Smith somehow, I don't know. That's all Peter Bennett's deal right there. But if they can get value for Smith or even Nardi and Cronin, that'd be a huge win.
Yeah. I hope my audio is better now. I just ripped out my mic, so I'm using my computer speakers. I don't know what it was doing with that. They'll have a lot of possibilities to go here. We'll see. I think with Josh Bell, what Passan is assuming is that Marlins will be willing to eat a lot of the money owed to him the rest of this year in order to get something in return. That's how they moved Arise to get a somewhat respectable offer. And with Bell, it's a lot more money. Even when you wait down to the deadline, he'll still be owed like $5.5 million for the last 2 months of the season. And we'll see. I mean, he's trending in the right direction, but he's not really lighting the world on fire, especially when he's just a first base DH type. So I wouldn't expect a whole lot, even if they do eat whatever is still owed to him right there. It's something I mentioned on the site, and I'd also shared on Twitter, is the surprisingly messy National League wildcard race that it is. As the Marlins, of course, are not going to get into this fantasy that there's still time, that maybe this is the spark they needed to turn things around. It's not just that they're 8 games back of the nearest playoff spot. It's that they're behind every other team. So there's people that have been replying to this, pointing out that 8 games over the course of 4 months is not a huge deficit, but it is because it's 9 teams between you and the nearest playoff spot. I only showed this to show the other teams. I might as well just zoom in a little bit to cut off the Marlins themselves and just show that this is wild, that the Cubs are holding the 3rd wildcard spot with a losing record. There's only 5 teams in the National League with above 500, and there are 10 below 500, including one that's in line for the playoffs. And look at that, 7 teams right there that are within 2 games of each other. It's I don't know. Nate, do you think this is going to hold all year? Aside from, I would say that the drop off is really from the top 4 to the others. It's just like last year, the Phillies are good. The Braves are going to be fine, we think, post Acuna. The Brewers are playing well. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. But are there other good teams? Who do you think has the chance to pull away from the rest of the pack when it comes to the teams outside of those elite ones?
Yeah, I think some teams are going to fall off and some teams are going to regain form, I'd say. The Diamondbacks, I mean, we saw them in the World Series last year. They know what it takes to get to the playoffs. I think the Giants will fall off a little bit. They've been kind of disappointed. I believe they lost their what's his name? John Hooley, I believe. They lost him, I think, for the season, correct? Yeah. The Cubs, they've been playing on and off, but I mean, you see the teams at the bottom. If you want to sort down to the bottom, I mean, everyone at the bottom is not the best. You have the Pirates, you have the Rockies, the Nationals. I don't know. They were hot at the beginning of the season, but unless they call up some of their highly touted prospects, I don't see them doing much, at all. And I think the Mets will probably sell at the deadline. Not sure what the Reds will do, but I feel like the Diamondbacks will probably separate themselves. But it's just a lot of bad baseball in the NL besides for the top 5 teams, like you mentioned.
I think with that, we will hop into Flip Fish. Let me just check the comments really quickly. Yeah, we could go into Flip Fish right here. There were a lot of options for the Marlins and Rays. Even in recent years, especially, people have noticed they've done a lot of business together. But really, over a larger sample they had, even when they haven't done it, there have been cast-offs from one team that have found their way to the other ones. I did not go with Harold Ramirez here. That would be too obvious. So I went in a slightly different direction with this one. As usual, I just take some hints from their baseball reference page. And based on those hints, I want you guys in the live chat and the rest of our panel here to try to figure out who it might be. Former Marlins and Rays player right here. Infielder, shortstop, second baseman, third baseman, 35-year-old Cuban player. Debuted in 2012. His last major league game in 2020. And he continued to play baseball beyond that. I don't know if he's active anymore, but at least beyond 2020, international leagues, independent leagues continue to play. 5 WAR player in his career. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed, but not a ton either way. So you see the overall offensive numbers, not that great. Think it over for a few seconds. We'll be back with a reveal on the other side. Should have our press box report then soon. We'll look ahead to the series as well and some other fun conversations topics. So stick with us right here for the rest of the show on FOF Live.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
Somebody not named Isaac. Tell me who this is. Sean or Nate?
Go ahead, Sean.
Hecavarria.
Whoa, what? It's Echeverry. So handsome.
Echevarria. I had to put a heck on it. Heck of a defender. It's the only reason that roar is positive. But
Heck of a player.
that is the answer.
Maybe it was pretty easy. I think the Cuba part gave it away pretty definitively. I guess I could have removed that in hindsight, but that's just part of the formula. These are the usual clues I use for every single guy, including their birth country.
I thought you might have done a Avi today in honor of him.
I was wondering if the Avi was coming.
No.
Or even Heath Bell. We can just do other free agent busts.
Heath Bell, I actually had not thought of him off the top of my head as somebody that was with the Rays, so that would be relatively hard. So hard that, I didn't realize that he was even worse with the Rays than he was with the Marlins, if that's possible. But it was in a really tiny sample, for what it's worth. In 2014, his last big league season. I guess I could get into this roster minutia if William wants to about JT Chagua. We could have clarified that with Avi being DFA'd, there's an opening on the 40-man roster. So there's a few different things the Marlins can do here as a result of that. 21 pitchers, 18 hitters. They have a current opening with Avi in limbo right there. And we expect that JT Chagua is going to be back this weekend against the Guardians. But first, he is finishing up his rehab assignment, playing a couple more games than I thought he would. From the injury update that we have from Kevin Burrell at the ballpark, he's going to do back-to-back games in Jacksonville. I'm assuming it's going to be tonight and tomorrow, and then he'll be back as soon as Friday, either Friday or Saturday right there. Everything else kind of uneventful. I mean, Brian Hoeing is progressing after having a setback with his hammy. Josh Simpson is throwing again. He has started throwing after having his surgery back in April. But same as usual with Sandy, with Yuri, even with Edward as well. We were just talking about Edward Cabrera. I think that is, at this point, you got to think at July, some point, Edward Cabrera comes back. But this is going to be one of the longer injury absences that he's had in his career. As frustrating as it is that he's had a lot of these IL stints, this is going to be one of the longer ones when all is said and done, assuming he does come back to this group right here. But yes, when Chagua comes back, he needs his 40-man spot, and he also needs an active roster spot. So we think, when did we do our last show with Sixto? Was that before Sixto went on the IL? I'm trying to think about. Yeah, so we didn't even talk about that. That was Sixto going on the IL. They need to make a bunch of changes where we think Rodri Munoz comes in as the 5th starter, and then Chagua is going to come in and replace whoever is the weakest link in the bullpen right there. So it's going to be, again, another quick look at what the roster is looking like right now, the active roster right there. So there's going to be some changes to the pitching staff where they squeeze in Munoz somewhere and they squeeze in Chagua somewhere. We think Emmanuel Ramirez and, who would be the other one? Maybe Brazoban goes right back down after coming back up again. Not sure.
Yeah, he didn't look too nice in his first time back.
His first inning was okay. And in his second inning, I think he walked 3 guys. Yeah, it was messy to this point. What else do I want to get to while we're on here? There is we should talk about Jesus Sanchez because Nate just wrote about him and Isaac always likes to talk about him anyway. And maybe Sean likes to talk about him too. And this is a big vote of confidence for him to trim Avi out of the right field mix and to have Sanchez has already been playing against every single right-hander this year and occasionally against lefties, but it's been a pretty strict platoon. He was a guy that his numbers early in the season and really until like a week ago were pretty bad, at least the surface level numbers, but the underlying stuff looked really good. Whenever he did square up a ball, it went really far. And all of a sudden, this past week has been his best week of the season. Nate, for anybody that has not had a chance to read your article over the couple hours since it's been out, can you summarize where we're at with Sanchez?
It looks like his underlying metrics are finally coming to light and it's turning into success on the field. You mentioned it. His expected slugging, it is the highest differential between his real slugging in all of baseball. So he's the unluckiest hitter in terms when it comes to slugging. His WOBA is the 2nd unluckiest in all of baseball, and I believe his batting average is 20th. He's 20th unluckiest when it comes to expected batting average as well. The guy hits the ball super hard. Not only that, he's his swing speed's all the way up there, and his K rate, which is the biggest thing I'd say for him, because the problem with Sanchez in the past has been he swings at almost everything, and his whiff rate's been super high. But you see this season, it's not the best, but compared to what it's been in years past, definitely a step forward. And a guy like him just putting the ball in play because he does hit the ball so hard, it can lead to a lot of success. And another thing I didn't mention in the article, I mentioned a few streams ago, is when he gets his launch angle up, he hits the ball super hard, but if it's right in the ground, it doesn't really do nothing for you. But he's been hitting the ball up a lot in the past couple series, and past 15 days he's hitting above 300. So very intriguing. Hopefully he keeps it up. Facing 2 righties this series, so hopefully he keeps it going.
Yeah, I would just echo what Nate said. I think the K percentage being slightly above league average is the biggest thing for him because you guys see it, man. He has probably the most offensive upside of anyone in this lineup besides probably Jazz Chisholm Jr. And I've just always been such a fan of the pure strength that this guy has. I remember, I think it was 60 grade power when he came over from the Rays at the time. And for someone that, like, no offense to him, I just don't think he's got the highest baseball IQ when he's at the plate. I don't think he started playing baseball till he was pretty old, like as a teenager. It's still somewhat of a new thing for him. I don't think he goes in there with many plans. He's just so talented at hitting the ball, and he's so strong when he is facing those right-handed pitchers. So you just see the hard hit percentage, the barrel percentage, and the average exit velo. Oh my God, that is just a recipe for an all-star right there. So I think this is the best it's going to get when it comes to K percentage and whiff percentage. I don't think you can really hope for anything better than that. I think it's going to plateau there for this player. And still, you look at the last month, they've been okay since May 1st through June 2nd. He's got an OPS of 712. I think his ceiling is slightly above that. I think he's got like a 750 OPS inside him when he just has to walk a little bit more and put the ball in play more, hit the ball in the air more, like Nate said. So he's such an intriguing player, such a good hitter. And what Craig mentioned on the spaces is, hey, the Marlins like him too. He's most likely going to be here through the deadline, and he will be playing everyday right field for them next year. And I think that was great to hear because he can hit 3rd or 4th for this team or for a rebuilding team all year long. And I'm very excited.
Right. Yeah, that was an interesting nugget to point out is how in Jeff Passan's notes pointing to Brian De La Cruz as someone that could be available in a thin outfield market. Didn't even bother mentioning Sanchez, even though they're guys that are, aside from being buddies with each other, they're on similar places in their careers where they have a few years of club control left. They've been inconsistent before. That you think, all things being considered, maybe both of them could be available, but for him to mention DLC, but for both Mish and now for Passan to not even bring him up, and then for Craig to say that they're planning to have him around for sure, regardless, it shows that they think that his value is going to rise a lot, for whether he's a true everyday guy or just an awesome platoon hitter. That if you're on a big side of the platoon, there's a lot of value to that.
Yeah.
We'll bring in Daniel right now. From Lone Depot Park, Daniel Rodriguez. Randy Rosarena is there. He's not wearing that uniform tonight, but Randy is going to be in the series, and maybe he'll start hitting better than 160 at some point. I know that Kevin really needs that. He's on Kevin's fantasy team still.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He tried to ship it
That's
to me
been
for
the talk the
me.
entire time.
He's on mine, Jay.
Terrible.
Yeah, I know one of the reasons we were excited to cover this series is to get to learn from Trisha Whitaker, the Rays TV reporter right there. I didn't get a chance to see the interview yet. Could you fill us in on what you discussed with her in previewing the 2024 Citrus Series?
Yeah, we discussed a bit. I asked her about the Rays this season and maybe some things that they need to start to get to the point where they were last season, being consistent, making the playoffs. She really mentioned Andy Diaz and Randy as two guys that really get up, the heart and soul of the team. And if things aren't really going the Rays' way, it has to go with those two guys. They are the main focus on the team. They are two biggest personalities. Well, literally, Andy Diaz being the biggest guy on the team. But and we can also go to Peter. I asked her about Beth McCoy and Puhan, just two guys who, right before the interview, were talking to a whole bunch of other Rays players, giving hugs, giving thanks. She mentioned Beth McCoy as being a really big clubhouse guy around there and really filled in his spot really well with the Rays. They mentioned Puhan. I can't remember off guard. She was saying so openly how it was not maybe the right fit with the Rays in terms of being with them and really live up to the potential that he could have been. Mentioned how Puhan, obviously one of their top prospects, but someone with Puhan who maybe just didn't fit in well. There was so much potential that it was really not really sad, but untapped potential with the Rays, and good to see them now. Catch it out. I just posted it on Twitter. Lots of great things to talk about. Talking about the Rays, upcoming series now with the Marlins. What you're seeing, maybe also her journey with Apple TV, because she's definitely one of the busiest people in baseball right now.
She's I remember I interviewed her last year, I think it was, and I was like, she's like, what are you going to talk about? And I said, we'll talk about just the challenges of facing the Marlins. And she was like, oh yeah, it's very challenging to face the Marlins. As Eli pointed out, the Marlins are, 2-19 against the Rays since the beginning of 2019.
Over the last 5 years, Marlins are 3-21 against the Rays. They've lost 5 straight season series against the Rays, and not just losing them, but in a couple sweeps in there. It is astonishing. As Daniel pointed out, there are a lot of cross-pollination between these teams. Bendix being the main one. That was just him last year. Yeah, celebrating the postseason berth. He'd been their GM the last couple of years, but he'd been in the Rays organization for 15 consecutive years in various roles. You touched on Bruhan, who was signed and developed by the Rays. Christian Bethencourt he was there for a couple of years. It's nothing amazing, but he was there on the Rays as recently as last season. And who else? And of course, former Marlins over there, Harold Ramirez batting third tonight for the Rays. We could go on and on. Of course, the one that no longer ties these teams together is Avi Garcia as well. He was just DFA'd. Before letting you go, Daniel, what did Skip have to say about the end of the Avi era?
Say what best for both sides with Avi Garcia. Mentioned great things about him. Just something that both sides needed to continue to move on. Better communication, better for himself. Really wasn't working out well. And he also mentioned it's true that he spent more time on the IL than he did in the Marlins uniform. 13 games this year. Last season, less than 40 games. So then before that, less than 100 games in his first season with the Marlins. Wish them well on his, but it was something that both sides really, if they wanted to continue on what they wanted to do. Mentioned really great things with Avi. Mentioned they had a really great rapport, really great of them talking together. It was just again that was needed, much needed for both sides. And again, when your manager says that you're spending too much time in the IL than you are playing, then it's really something there to look at. But really great things on Avi, but it was something that was really needed, and finally it happened. Took him how long? 3 years. And then if you also want to go out with Peter Bendix, also it's funny you put him there. He was very cordial with a lot of the Rays. I would think he was there for at least 45, 30 minutes on the entirety of the Rays side in their dugout, hugging players, talking to coaches, gave Indy a handshake, gave Gandhi a handshake. Kevin Cash, he talked to for a good 10 minutes. Some of their assistant coaches, some of their analytics people coming up to talk to him. He was really in the dugout for the Rays for a good 45, 30 minutes, talking to everyone. It really, showed that, in terms of the Marlins fans, maybe not like Peter Bendix, but it seems to me he's very well liked in the Rays organization. And you can really tell from that to the time spent just in the last 45, 30 minutes in the dugout, really talking to everyone, giving hugs, asking them about their families, everything going on with them. So you can tell that he was a fixture in that Rays organization.
Okay. And there's a picture from Kevin today from the ballpark of Bendix with Kevin Cash, who, they had a big intersection between the two of them. So we have a prediction video from Daniel and Kevin that we're going to get to. I think Daniel, for a lot of this season, was leading the prediction time leaderboard, but at this point has been very briefly overcome. So we'll get into that. But every single pick this stage of the season has a lot weighing on it. I know Daniel takes that very seriously. So follow him, D-Rod, YYY, at the end of it. On Twitter, both him and Kevin got your coverage from Lone Depot Park in the opener of only a 2-game set. I like to remind people, a 2-game set, and then these teams meet for 2 in Tampa Bay later on. So thanks a lot, Daniel.
Boy, not great audio.
There's a whole lot of stuff going on right there. That's what happens when we push it a little later and closer to first pitch. So there's more announcements that take over. We'll take a peek at the lineups for tonight's game. As I mentioned, Harold Ramirez batting third, despite actually not playing well this season.
He stinks.
Unfortunately, to this point in the season. Let us start, though, on the Rays side and take a look at what they have right here. Ahmed Rosario is somebody that I thought was one of the steals of the offseason at just $1.5 million. He got off to a really great start, and now he's kind of come back and returned to being Ahmed Rosario again, where it's nothing special. It's like a league average hitter, and he is playing shortstop for them tonight, but has actually played very little shortstop for them so far during the course of the season. It's been some second base, some corner outfield spots as well in there. Alex Jackson, there's another flipped fish guy that we overlooked. He is the worst. I think it's hard to sugarcoat it. He's a worse hitter than even Tim Anderson is at this point in the season. He has been up for a while as their backup catcher. Doesn't play a lot, but when he does play, he strikes out. What's his strikeout rate? 49%. A 49% strikeout rate for Alex Jackson. And yet continues to be a major leaguer right there. Is there anything else, Sean, go to you about this Rays lineup that you're interested by?
I'm amazed how much not. With just how much they're scuffling as well. Trying to put my own predictions together, went through the Rays lineup and determined I was not seeing as many glaringly obvious answers as I expected to see from that I have from many other Marlins opponents over the course of this season. It's I was that's what struck me the most. It's just that they're struggling about as much as the Marlins are offensively in a lot of ways. Certainly they're saying the Marlins bad is overstating it, but that's what shocked me the most. I expected to see much more, I guess, raisedness from their lineup. Looking ahead to that being the vision, for the ball club, it's just it's not really coming together for them yet this season.
Isaac Paredes, I should say, to differentiate him from our own Isaac. Isaac Paredes. He is a popular series MVP selection from our super subs who have sent in their predictions so far. But yeah, as you see, he's kind of an interesting guy where he's never been a StatCast darling, but he has so much pull side power that it's about him just knowing exactly who he is and getting more production than you might expect just out of the skill set alone. On the Marlins side, it's kind of business as usual from this lineup. As we keep reiterating, Avi has not been with this team since April, so him being DFA does not actually have a sort of immediate impact on their current roster right here. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty standard collection right here. Anything, Isaac, that comes to mind looking at how they're going to approach this matchup?
Oh, really quick, just to touch on Rosario very briefly. His on base percentage is only 12 points higher than his batting average. He is hitting 293 and he's getting on base at 305. That is some serious, that is insane to me. But regarding the Marlins, yeah, Tim Anderson back at the number 8 spot, the lowest he's been all season. I think eventually, if the Miami just didn't have a very tough offensive catching tandem, you'd be hitting 9th. I think it would make more sense for Tim Anderson to be hitting 9th than 8th. But unfortunately, just you have Nick Fortes and Christian Bethancourt really struggling to get on base. But if it were me, I would love to see Jesus Sanchez. I guess hitting 5th is pretty good. I'd love to see him get high up there. Brian De La Cruz is in a little bit of a slump, an in-season slump. Unfortunately, he had some tough luck in San Diego. I think there was one ball where it could have been a bases clearing double. Instead, it was a phenomenal play by Manny Machado to keep that slump going. But yeah, nothing crazy here. Otto Lopez continues to be in that lineup. I'm not sure. I know when I wrote about Lopez, he had made, I think, 20-something consecutive starts. I don't know the last time Otto Lopez was not in the starting lineup. I believe it's still going strong. So great find. I love what our boy Luis Adio Weiss compared him to. It was I guess a closer to prime Gene Segura. I don't think he's going to be as good as that, but I sort of like that comparison. And Lopez's power, it's a little bit a nice surprise. I didn't think he had that in him. I don't think he's going to hit 20 home runs, but I think it's nice to have in his back pocket. He's a very good player. He's a really nice guy, trilingual player. Yes, he speaks French, Spanish, and English. And yeah, to see him, hitting, I guess I like him in between the two lefties, the two not great disciplined lefties in Sanchez and Gordon. So I think this is the best lineup they could possibly construct right now against a right-hander.
To give you the stat on Otto, this is going to be his 20th start in the last 21 games. Only once in the last 3.5 weeks has he not been in that lineup. And every single time it's been at second base during that streak. Yep. He's been fine defensively at second base. Yeah. Among this, what just stuck out to me that I hadn't noticed, you brought up the walk rate for Ahmed Rosario. I looked at the Marlins lineup, and I didn't realize that Jazz is, at least in this version, he's the guy. I mean, if you're looking at Jazz as the one who leads the team in walk rate, it's not a great sign. Like Josh Bell, for one example, even though he has come to life as a hitter overall, he's still being really aggressive and not drawing his walks, even when he gets ahead in the count. That's kind of one difference between earlier in his career. And it even stood out. I remember when the Marlins acquired him last year, he had success down the stretch, but he had it. The walks weren't quite there from where it previously had been. And that's just one element that it helps. We haven't even touched on it. The Marlins have not scored a run in 4 days. They've not scored since Friday. They were shut out on back-to-back days to end the Rangers series right here. Yeah, Nate, what is your confidence? We went on Sanchez, but with this offense as a whole, are they still in a pretty bad spot? Just based on what we've seen, even when they've had this extended stretch where they've been playing close to 500, their offense at times just totally disappears.
Yeah, like you said, some guys feel like when some guys get hot, other guys just fizzle out, and then right now it's at the point where really no one besides, I guess, Jesus Sanchez is hitting that well right now, honestly. Good news is they are facing 2 righties this series. Maybe that's a good chance for guys like Jazz to heat back up, Josh Bell as a lefty to heat back up again, and Jesus Sanchez to stay hot. But it's just they kind of lack the depth with guys like, TA and Fortes, the bottom of the order, to really round out the lineup. So I don't know. This series is going to have to rely on the pitching more, because it's not like the Rays, like Sean mentioned, are going to score that many runs this series either. So maybe push across a few runs and then see what you can do from there.
There's a look at the probables right here. Those are, to have Luzardo and Braxton back to back like that. It's Eflin coming off the injured list, where he's been mostly good as a Ray since coming over, but hasn't made a start in a while, so you don't know entirely what to expect from him right there. We'll hop into prediction time, shall we?
This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
At the end of every single stream, we make our series predictions, and this is the first time in a while that's only a 2-game set that we're looking at, but yet the same amount of points are up for grabs. It is just as consequential as every other series right here. And Isaac is the top ranked of our staffers right here, but it's actually our super sub 10 of spades BK, aka Nicholas Milton. He's our points leader at the moment in 23, and Nate is close behind, and Sean himself is right there at 20 points, well ahead of me and the rest of our group. The full leaderboard on our site. Encourage everybody to participate, play along, as we include our stream guests, our staffers, and our super subs right here all season long. And it's been a highly contested race to this point in the season. From Daniel and from Kevin and one special guest, we go to Lone Depot Park to hear what their predictions are for this series.
Is it Trisha Whitaker?
Almost. Second best thing.
Alrighty, Marlins and Rays series preview. I'm going to say that the Marlins will split the series and Ryan Pepio will be my MVP.
Oh, me? My bad. I think the Rays win this series, and they're going to take, obviously, 2-0. And the MVP is going to be Isaac Paredes.
Ooh. I'm going to go same thing almost with Andres. Rays take the series 2-0. MVP, the returning Zach Eflin, who's going to come out and have a dominant outing against the Marlins.
Already back to you, Eli.
Oh
my God.
That was cute to say it in harmony at the end like that. Let's fire it up. Kevin usually leads us off, but he's not on our show.
All right. I got the Marlins and Rays splitting the series, and I'm taking Alex Jackson. And I'm taking Jesus Sanchez as my series MVP. Facing two righties, I just had the article on him today. Sanchez against the team that the Marlins got him for. So, split.
Isaac Azoot, series predictions.
Alrighty, I believe this will be a 2-game split between the Marlins and the Rays. And I think that Ahmed Rosario is going to be the MVP. A couple lefties on the mound for Miami. Ahmed Rosario.
Sean Millerick, let's hear from you.
I'll take a series split as well, even number. I'm taking a split, and Jesus Luzardo will be the series MVP.
Ooh.
My prediction: 2-game series, even number. You always got to go with the split, unless you're feeling it. Now, I'm feeling a Marlins sweep right here with Jesus Luzardo as the series MVP.
What?
You look at these teams, and I don't think there's that big of a difference. I mentioned the laughable splits between them head-to-head over the last 5 years, and that is overdue for correction, don't you think? I mean, 3-21 for the Marlins against the Rays the last 5 years. That cannot keep up that extreme of a sense. So I think 2 very close wins for the Marlins here in Miami, one of them led by Zeus. And that is our show here on FOF Live. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Pretty good showing right here as expected for both the series as well, the series and the Avi Garcia obituary. So please check out the rest of our coverage on fishonfirst.com as we have more reaction to that decision and the historical context and all the ripple effects of what that kind of decision means for this Marlins team. Overall, this team playing more appetizing brand of baseball over the last month plus than they had been previously. So fingers crossed that they have some entertaining games against the Rays, even though that's not been the case in recent years. We'll be back with another stream on Friday for the Guardian series, but a lot of coverage between now and then. So be sure to check out the site, check us out individually for our coverage and our social media reaction. And we appreciate the support. So have a good night. Enjoy the Citrus series and go fish.